jump out of bed. You're frantic because you're late. The kids are up, they've made a mess of the kitchen, and they're running around screaming and yelling while you're trying to get them to get themselves dressed to go out to school. Your partner has left, your husband has left, and you're there answering the phone. It's ringing incessantly because your client wants to know where you are. It's chaos. Hello, I'm Rowena Starling, welcoming you to the Save Your Breath show, where we help parents eliminate the stress and aggravation of parenting, whether your child is 5 or 50. Today's show is about the chaos that hits the household that reverberates into lasting for many days, the waves of that, and how a family system helps to contain and to a large degree eliminate that sort of problem. Are you in denial as a parent? Are you parenting by default? Many parents feel that, they feel pretty good about what they're doing. They're at peace about how they're parenting. But the question is, what are you at peace with? And what effect is it having on the ultimate goal, which is to grow strong, happy, independent children, well, adults, and in this case. If they only knew the effective family system that allows them to have the proper elements in place for balance and success in parenting, then they would have the relationship with this eventually happy, independent adult that they're hoping to raise. Through the work that I have done over the years, and observance of parents and doing research as a parent. My son is over 30 years old, so I have all of that I bring to the table. I have created a family system. I've developed this family system because what I needed to do was elevate my game, elevate my sense of competence and confidence in what I was doing. And what I did was I realized an improvement in all aspects of my life, personally and professionally, as a result of it. Would you like to have that? Do you have a family system in place? When my son was a child, my parenting at best was not even average. Because in the course of his young life, and as he moved through middle school and on for a while there, I was devastated by divorce. And in the process of being devastated by divorce, what happens is my attention was just all over the place and all kinds of noise in the head. And of course, you know that then the son suffered because of these things. All these factors devastated me, and then because I was devastated, then what am I giving out? I realized that if I continued in the way that I was going, that the legacy I'd leave for my son would be depression and pain. So I made it my business. I made it a point to get the information that I needed. So I just wonder here if any of you have that level of devastation working and worming its way into your family life. So why have a family system? Well, it's important for keeping your sanity as you are growing this eventual adult happily, hopefully, that they are happy and they end up successful and all this stuff. You know, if chaos is ruling the household, then the whole thing is unfocused. You need a family system to help you be focused and help you remain in integrity with what you're trying to put across in your family. A weak system is better than none, and no system is just asking for trouble. And you get to have trouble all the time. Not only that, it leads to more and more stress. Stress that is affecting your mental and physical health. Remember, the CDC points out to us that 7 people die from stress every 2 seconds. 7 people just died. Oh my gosh. So I want us to keep in mind that my interest here is vested in us having long, happy, joie de vivre lives in the process of the parenting. And the stress involved with that needs to be nipped. That's my ultimate goal in this whole conversation. For instance, when my son was in middle school, I volunteered quite a lot to help with raising money and funds for the school. So I was down at the school quite a lot. And of course, if you're down at the school quite a lot, then you know the teachers and you get to know how certain students are, and you know, you get a feel for the terrain and the environment and who's who and how they behave. Well, of course, there were many children that were in and out of the principal's office. There are problems happening back and forth. You know how it is in middle school. But I want to talk about one in particular instance, because there's this one young man that was a bad actor. He was disrespectful, and he was routinely, sent home, or his parents had to come down to the school. And I happened to be there one day in the office when the mother showed up, because she had been called to reprimand her son or talk to the principal. I don't know what the deal was, but let me tell you, before her arrival, I had a tendency to sort of look at the children and say, this child is this way. Oh, look at that child is that way. Oh, tisk, tisk, look at that child, how that child is behaving. But when that mother showed up at the school, it took a lot of pressure and attention off of the child, because let me tell you, when she showed up, I saw where he got the way he was. He was ever the smaller example of who this adult person was. She came in, she was cussing, she was slamming her fist on the counter, she was telling the principal, oh no, my son didn't do that, and don't call me down here for this kind of stuff, I am that blip blip. I mean, she was going off. My eyes were like saucers. I couldn't believe it. So here was yet another clue that, you know what? These kids are just picking up this energy from, let me think, their parents, to a very, very large degree. I have a funny story that my son told me about how my influence manifested in his world, although it really was funnier to him, but actually I'll share it with you. He was driving to Las Vegas with a carload of his buddies. He was driving, they left San Francisco, driving to Las Vegas. And they're having a good old time, and somewhere in the course of this long drive, 2 of them started to butt heads. They had beef with each other over something. And my son says he distinctly, he was just amazed when he heard me right there with him, when he told them, you know what? If you guys don't stop all that noise and fussing in this car, I'm going to turn it around and head back to San Francisco. I mean it. And he proceeded to drive off of the freeway, park the car, got them all out of the car, and told them, now you two apologize. Come to some agreement. I am not driving all the way to Las Vegas to be miserable, and driving all the way back from Las Vegas to be miserable. I will leave you somewhere, but I'm not having this. So the young men apologized to each other, and they proceeded on to Las Vegas, and a good time was had by all. He says, Mom, I was amazed at myself. I just felt like you were there and the words were coming out of my mouth, and I felt like the only adult in the car. And it tickles me. Anyway, another thing that happens when you are implementing a family system, cutting through issues and problems that you may be having, is many of my clients tell me that when we are focused on one issue that we're clearing up, many other issues get cleared up in the process, and at the same time, sort of like a domino thing. For instance, I have a parent, a mother and father. The mother had had a lot of difficulty with confrontations. She was not confrontational, so her discipline with her children was very weak because she didn't want to have that, have that energy. She had this anxiety over being the authority figure. And her husband had anger issues. He was not necessarily a violent person, but he's sort of like the kind of road rage person. He would be cursing behind the wheel, that kind of person. Sort of, he had something going on that with just the slightest thing, it was unwinding into something that whoever he was angry with did not want to encounter. And it was pretty easy for it to come up, or it was eating him. So while we eliminated these things, we were focused on eliminating these two things with them, they noticed that once that was resolved, those issues that they had were resolved, their kids started to be far less aggressive with each other. They had 3 children, with each other, and far less aggressive at school. So you see, this just goes to show that the mirroring, like the mother at the school that I described. I mean, the boy was just an exact mirror of his mother, and she was stressed out like crazy. I don't know what her stresses were, but you see, wow, the walking stress is what she was. And this mirroring and melding of our energies and our influence with each other, that's part of that 93% of nonverbal communication. So, do you have fear and anger issues in your household? So, how do we quell, this chaos that flares up periodically in our home environment? Without a mentor, someone who's been there before, we tend to operate and parent by default, right? We fill in the blanks with our own assumptions. And then our own assumptions end up being, well, look at society. You can kind of see when you encounter people, something might have been a little off for a while there. So what is this family system I've cultivated? Well, here is a rough outline of the system. You can see that it's in the shape of a diamond, right? Because I think that families are the crown jewels of society, right? So I think the diamond shape, I'm very attracted to diamonds in general because they represent something that's honed through pressure and heat and time. And we parents are being forged like diamonds into a state of grace. So parents are this grace. You've noticed there's people grow into this kind of graceful individual. Many do. So what we're able to do with a family system is to have the parents come up with the family priorities and the core values. It allows us to hone our expertise and stay in integrity with what we're trying to do in the household. Is that something that you would like? Do you have that happening right now? You gain confidence and you're able to expand your view and take into account a lot more things than you would normally, because now you can breathe and consider more options, consider more possibilities, rather than being at the effect of some stressful event that's happening in the moment. The idea in the system is to have life be easier, to have this whole process of being this parenting hero easier. Do it easier and with finesse. The idea is to prevent the stress and the passing of it on to our children, as demonstrated again with the mother that visited the school. The child was just acting out on what he gets to experience every day. This is an example of that stress having been passed on to that child. Okay, so there are 5 steps in the system. And of course, each step has its own steps, but we'll just do the quick outline here just so that you have an idea of what it entails. This is a summary outline. So now the parent, the head of the family here, the parent or the parents, depending on how many parents are in charge. Generally, even if the parents don't live together, we really need to have a system in place in that case. And the first thing about that is that we want to do, number 1, we set up ease. We do that from the get-go, right? The parents come up with the core values of the family. They set the family priorities. Then they decide on what kind of actions will be necessary through time to establish and ingrain these priorities and core values. And then the parents are responsible for communicating the system, the core values and priorities to the children, to the other family members, the communications here. In the course of doing that, they come up with a map of how their family system works, because this is the family system that I've created, but each family gets their own individual, because no 2 families are alike. There are some core things that are the same, and then you get to map out what the differences are that you are engaging in with your family, your custom family system, and then it leads to the eventual strong, happy, independent adults, right? So the first thing we want to handle is ease. We want to make it easier. The next thing is parenting is a calling. So we spend time getting clear on that calling. Not all people are called to be parents, right? What that means. We're talking here about that hero aspect of things. You get to appreciate yourself a little bit better. Now that you're feeling a certain amount of ease, you can start to do that. Okay. And then over 3, we have raising the dough. Money is a big stress factor for many, many families. And so we have this conversation about raising the dough that has to be included, so that now the family, the parents are able to understand how to engage their energies in such a way that they're able to attract money to them. So they're now laying a financial foundation, leaving a legacy of knowing how to have this to their children. I mean, how would you like to have your legacy be that your children understand how to make the money and have it be easier to make the money, right? It's the old adage of, you can feed a man for a day, but if you teach him how to fish, he can feed himself for all of the rest of his days. And it's the same idea with raising the dough. We get into that. Number 4 is discipline. Now, we understand what discipline is all about. Many times that not wanting to confront the situation, just kind of tiring to be the strong one standing there, making sure certain things happen and making sure they happen a certain way, and having that understanding why it has to happen a certain way and the importance of that in the microcosm, in the macro, there's a whole thing there. Discipline, I'm seeing that this is a big one for a lot of people. And then respect. Discipline and respect are two sides of the same coin, basically, as far as I'm concerned anyway. And then you get over here to the respect. Not only is it about the child respecting the parent, but it's also about the parent respecting the child. Because it is a basic human need to feel honored and esteemed, right? And just because you're tiny and new on the planet does not mean that you do not want to feel honored and esteemed. It is necessary. So, we get into that. You will agree that this is what has to happen in order for you to have an understanding and an appreciation for that basic human need. In the process of engaging these aspects of things, you bring peace to the household, because especially in the respect piece here, the family members are getting the recognition that they need from the other members of the family on both sides, going and coming, right? And that creates a certain level of joy. Joy is present in the house. We like having joy there. Don't you? Anyway, so what if you decide that you don't want to have a family system? Your family system is fine the way it is, which probably is non-existent for many of us. Well, then you get to continue your random chaos happenings that reverberate for another week or two, a month, or whatever the deal is. I mean, people have different levels of chaos in their homes. And many times chaos just reigns. I mean, there are some instances where certain parents get to look forward to certain chaotic situations on a weekly basis or a monthly basis. Oh my goodness, stop that. Do you have this going on in your household? You get to continue with the nagging and the begging and the ask of the kids to do, the person to do what it is that you want them to do. Saying the same things over and over and over again. Oh my God. You get to keep that. You get to keep the anxiety of being the authority figure versus your child's friend. We had a conversation about that in the last episode. You get to keep that. Do you want to keep that? Then there's the ever-looming money issues that continue to haunt your very existence. Ah, yes. Mounting stress, moment to moment, prematurely aging you, making you sick, and eventually leading to an early death. It's not funny, I know, but I was told to smile more. In any event, the early grave thing, let's do away with that. Do you understand that we can all be living longer and happier, just in general? We're cutting ourselves short with all the stress. If you find that you are stressed and you want to be stress-free, we can do a 5-minute process to eliminate that stress, that feeling. You may have many different ones. Okay, well, they will probably be 5 minutes each, but you know what I'm saying? You don't have to take something that you've lived with all your life and now say, well, it's going to take me another, so many months and years to get rid of it. We can handle it now. We can do that. Well, if you find that you want help with all of that, please do allow me to help you. Go to the complimentary parenting breakthrough session that I offer. The link is called SaveYourBreath101.com/parenting assessment. Do the assessment there and submit it, and let's have a conversation. It's a $250 value for free, and we may find that you're able to alleviate yourself from some stuff right immediately in that moment. Well, I thank you very much for watching and listening, and I bid you eternal joy.